It's the realist.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's your guy Realistic, and today in this video I'm going to be doing a review on Universal Audio's real-time version of Auto-Tune Pro X. But first, before we get into that, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the page. That way you can see videos just like this pop up in your feed. And also, if you find this video helpful, be sure to hit that like button, because believe it or not, it does help the channel grow. Because if you like a video, then it tells YouTube that other people may like it as well and show it to them. So let's get into this review here. We're going to be talking about Universal Audio's version of Auto-Tune Pro X. So Universal Audio for a long time has had versions of Auto-Tune, and the difference between the UA version and the Antares version is that the UA version is going to run off of your Universal Audio interface or satellites DSP instead of running off of your CPU. So the concept behind that is it's going to be a lot less taxing on your CPU when you have that pulled up. And this also allows Universal Audio's version to be zero latency instead of low latency. And when I'm recording in the studio and I'm tracking and I have the UAD version pulled up for Auto-Tune, my ears tell me it sure sounds like zero time latency. If you did the science and math, who knows, maybe it's like a billionth of a second off. I don't know. But I can tell you that my ears, it sounds zero time latency to me whenever I've used it. And I've had some version of Universal Audio's Auto-Tune in my studio for like 10 years. It's my go-to if I'm tracking. That's the version that I'm always using. And I usually use on lead vocals, I usually use the Universal Audio one in my chain, just again for the lower CPU usage. Okay, so let's talk about this. So this is the Universal Audio version. It's $299, basically $300, brand new if you don't already own it. But if you own the previous version of Universal Audio's real-time Auto-Tune, which would be the one that looks like this, then it's a $50 upgrade. Let's kind of talk about here what some of the features are here, the differences between Universal Audio's version and Antare's version of it. So one of the great things that I love about it is we have auto key that Antares makes that still works with Universal Audio one. So if I go over here and flip the key over to E minor and hit send to Auto-Tune, you see right here we're right now in the key of A minor, but if I hit send to Auto-Tune, that switches it over to the key that we're in. Now, the key of this song is A minor, so we'll go ahead and switch that back. But it is nice that it works with both the Antares version and the Universal Audio version. I'm glad that that is still an option. One of the big differences that we have here is we have the new updated version of the interface here. It's the same version that Antares uses for their Auto-Tune Pro X. Our old version that Universal Audio had looked like this here with our kind of, a more modern look than what Auto-Tune used to look like in the mid 2000s. We also have the capability in here to be able to change from light mode to dark mode. I personally always have all my apps and stuff set to system mode, so when my computer switches to nighttime mode, everything switches to dark mode. But here's what dark mode looks like. I know most of the world is team dark mode, so most of the people will be using that. But I like it to change throughout the day, so it gives me a sense of what time of day it is. Okay, so now that we've kind of gone through the similarities of what Auto-Tune Antares version has and UAD's version has, we'll talk about the biggest difference is Universal Audio's version does not have graph mode. Whereas the Antares Pro X version does have graph mode. Graph mode is where you can actually pull the audio from the track here and be able to adjust the pitch manually instead of automatically Auto-Tune. So that is pretty much the big difference there, because thankfully Antares and Universal Audio work very well together to give you a lot of similarities. We have our modern mode, but we can also switch to our classic mode, and what that does is this switches over to the Auto-Tune 5 algorithm. This was the iconic one that we heard, like Kanye West's 808s and Heartbreaks, and Future was using this a lot in his earlier ones. T-Pain, obviously. It's just a more harder version, more glitchy, more gritty. You kind of get that classic feel. Modern, a little bit smoother. Everything else, same thing here. Our input types here. And this all goes based on frequencies. Some people will say this doesn't matter. It definitely matters. And it just basically tells AutoTune what frequencies to focus on. So I always recommend setting your input type because it changes how AutoTune reacts for sure. So whenever I'm working with most male singers, I go with low male. Women singers, I'll either dance around between alto, tenor, or soprano. And then male singers or rappers, whenever they switch to their falsetto, I'll have that set to soprano. And of course, we have our keys and our scales here, just like we would in the Antares version. And this section right here is probably the biggest determining fact on if your auto-tune is going to sound like crap or not. Because if your song's in A minor and you got this set to E flat minor, all of those vocals are going to sound terrible. So this is always good to know what you're setting it to. And if you don't know the key of the song, that's the great thing that auto key still works with the UAD version as well. And then our parameters over here, they work just like they would in AutoTune. So let's go over those real quick here. We have our retune speed. That's the one that everybody goes to. The more we increase this, the more you're going to sound like Future or T-Pain. But basically what this will do is it's going to set how fast AutoTune is going to tune a note. So the slower that we go, the more natural that it's going to sound. And the more we increase it, the more you're going to sound like a robot or like Future or T-Pain. All right, and then over here we have our flex tune knob right here. This is a great knob when you're working with people that can sing really well. If you're working with somebody who doesn't sing very well, just keep this at 0. You'll be doing them a big favor. But for people that can sing really well, like Adele or Ariana Grande or Michael Bublé, whoever it may be, I know we all think of, real singers don't need auto-tune, but we probably haven't heard a mainstream vocal that wasn't auto-tuned in the last 25 years. I mean, everyone's using it. But yeah, if you're like Ariana or Adele or somebody like that, Flex Tune is going to allow you more vocal freedom and be able to sing in between notes, be able to sing notes outside of the scale. So right now we're in A minor, which is all the white keys. But if a singer needed to kind of reach for something chromatically, the more we increase this, it's going to let them. So if we wanted to, for instance, throw in an E flat in there, the more we increase our flex tune, the more auto tune is it going to allow us to do that. Another vocal technique that is very common that singers use is a technique called melisma. And what that is it is a technique that singers use when they take one syllable, like the word the, and make it into multiple syllables. A very famous, probably the most famous example of that is Whitney Houston's I'll Always Love You. When she starts out and she sings I, she just doesn't say I, she goes I, right? She's making it into multiple syllables. So flex tune is going to allow a singer to have that freedom. Our Humanize over here, again, if you're working with somebody that sings really well, this is something that you may want to reach for. If you're working with somebody who doesn't sing very well or more of something that's just straight up rap or something like that, you probably want to keep this at 0, especially if they don't have the best pitch. You'll be doing them a solid by keeping this at 0. But for somebody that does sing well, this can come in very handy because the more that we increase this, the more it's going to tell AutoTune to ignore sustained notes that are held out for longer periods of time. The reason why that makes it sound a lot more natural is because our ears are able to perceive a note that's being held out a lot longer. If it's being tuned and it sounds robotic, if it's being held out, we'll be able to tell, versus if the sustained notes are having a lot less tuning on it, it's going to sound a lot more natural. So everything works exactly the way that it would in AutoTune. The biggest thing that we're getting here is with the universal audio version is we're getting zero latency, and we're also getting a lot less work on our CPU. But let's go ahead. We'll just throw this to a test here. For anybody that's watching that's got kids, don't worry. This is a song that I had to do for the NFL, so there's no cuss words because CBS said no. So don't worry, not about to play any cuss words here. But let's go ahead and test it out here, see what it does, and hear that it sounds just like AutoTune.
for the underdogs that made a way. I brought my team and we came to play. I'm taking chances, you taking breaks. I know the combination, I can break the safe. I strive for greatness, I got what it takes. 100K is like a play away. If you don't believe in me, then stay away. You say you working, but it ain't the same. And if fails come round, they better make my day. I'ma stay down, I'ma stay unfazed. I'm really him, you can't take my place. All I do is win, it's just in my veins. Blood, sweat, tears, maybe.
Sounds just like AutoTune. Sounds great. Did exactly what it needed to do. The other things too, just to touch on, is we still have our advanced mode here. We still have the ability, if we want to, remove notes from the scale, which actually for this particular song actually did come in handy, because this particular one wasn't technically A minor. The beat is actually A harmonic minor, so this allows me then to remove the G natural, and so I have the G sharp in there for that scale. But most of the time you won't need that. You know, most of the time your minor and major is gonna do the trick, but it's good to know that you have the ability to remove notes if you want to. We also still have the ability, just like we do in the Antares version, to be able to control it via MIDI if we want, for cool performances and stuff like that. But yeah, that's my review on Universal's real-time version of AutoTune Pro X. It's pretty much the same as Antares version of Pro X, but I still think that if you're running a studio, or if you're a person that does a lot of recording, or if you're just a person that uses auto-tune on your lead vocals a lot, I think having the universal audio version is a must, in my personal opinion. Auto-tune is our standard in our industry. If you're an engineer and you record, whether you like auto-tune or not, there's no way around it. You're going to have to use auto-tune on a lot of the songs that you're working on. And if you're recording people, the universal audio version is great, because that zero time latency comes in handy in the studio. And when an artist can hear the auto-tune live as they're performing and they're not getting any latency, they can do some really special things, especially artists that really know how auto-tune works and they know how to do different techniques to really bend their voice. Then they're able to use auto-tune as an instrument. The perception of auto-tune out there that the general population has is, oh, you can't sing and auto-tune this and that, and this is only for people that can't sing. What they don't realize though is people that sing really well, they still use auto-tune, and people that really know how to use auto-tune, there's an art to it. It's not just singing. There's certain vocal techniques that you have to keep in mind while you're performing. You know, you have to make sure that you're controlling your vibrato, and that you're not getting too loose by singing into notes, that you're kind of, you know, a lot of straight tones, because auto-tune will react differently based on how you sing it. So there is an art to using auto-tune, and it's still important to use. But hopefully this review was insightful. Like I said, if you already own the old version of Universal Audio's real-time auto-tune, then it's just a $50 upgrade. If you don't own any version of Universal Audio's auto-tune, then it's $299, $300. Thanks so much for taking the time to watch this tutorial. If you found it useful, be sure to like and subscribe, because it does help the channel grow. When you like a video, it tells YouTube that you liked it, and maybe other people will like it as well. And also be sure to check out my online mixing and mastering courses, the art of beat mixing, the art of vocal mixing, and the art of mastering, all available now. And if this video was helpful and you're looking for other videos, you can watch a video here, here, and here. All right, until next time, y'all.